Time to fight. Emergency mobilizations at Senate offices nationwide. It is noon on the East Coast. The original call was, for noon the next day, and that's now on the East Coast. Although numerous groups now, Progressive Change Campaign Committee, NARAL Action, and others are saying, anytime you can, today, Friday, show up at your senator's office. Doesn't matter who the senator is. Doesn't matter if it's the main office. They have branch offices all over your state. Each one of them, each state has 2 senators, with the exception of Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. And they both should have 2 senators. But, Republicans want to make sure that any state that votes Democratic doesn't have 2 senators. Anyhow, go to the offices of your senators and protest this. This is absolutely outrageous what is going on. What you saw yesterday was, first of all, it was a crime. I mean, lying. Is it perjury to lie about the meanings of boof and devil's triangle? Yeah, it is. This is like the 5th or 6th time now that Brett Kavanaugh has lied to the Senate in the last 15 years. He lied to the Senate about knowing about stolen emails and information from Democrats. He lied to the Senate about what he did in the Bush administration with regard to torture. He has lied to the Senate about the meaning of words. He has lied about how much he drinks. He's lied about whether he ever blacks out. All of these things, the field is littered with evidence of these lies. In fact, Republicans don't even bother to refute these lies anymore. They simply say, well, time's over. It's, going to go on. This is perjury. In addition, the Deborah Ramirez, the second accuser, now the New Yorker has just published a series of emails between Republican staffers and her lawyer showing that they actively prevented her from testifying yesterday. They did not want her to show up. And again, this is another woman who did not come forward on her own. She was brought forward by the press, as was Dr. Ford. In this case, it was Ronan Farrow and Jane Mayer at the New Yorker. Alexandra, by the way, just a heads up, in a few minutes, Congressman Ro Khanna is going to call in, and we're going to be doing a national town hall for the rest of the hour. He'll be taking your calls. So if you have comments or questions that you'd like to share with Congressman Ro Khanna, give us a call now, and we'll put you on. And I'm sure that he's going to be talking about this, too. And then we're going to be talking about private prisons at the top of the second hour with Shane Bauer, who just wrote a book about this. He went undercover in the private prison industry, which is particularly poignant at this moment in time because, in other news of women, you probably may not have heard the name Alba Lorena Rodriguez. She was 5 months pregnant when she had a miscarriage. And she is now facing 20 years in prison. She's been in jail for a number of years, 30-year sentence. She has already served 8 years of a 30-year sentence for having an abortion in El Salvador. One of many women who have been imprisoned in El Salvador for having miscarriages, and they imprisoned them for having abortions ever since that country in 1998 criminalized abortion, which is exactly what Brett Kavanaugh wants to do here in the United States. Other news about women, Crystal Mason today begins her prison sentence in Texas for the crime of voting while being a felon. She's going to jail for 5 years. A young black woman who had a felony conviction, as many people of color do, disproportionately, certainly in Texas. And she did not realize that she could not legally vote. She cast a provisional ballot because her name wasn't on the list. It was never counted. But the Republican management of the state of Texas is putting her in prison for 5 years for voting, by way of saying to black people in Texas, if you've got anything on your record, don't even think about going to the polling place. Even if you don't have anything on your record. Meanwhile, Alexandra Petrie writes in the Washington Post. This was in my opinion, this was the best op-ed in the entire Washington Post because it summarized the whole thing. I mean, Donald Trump's feeling of entitlement. He went to a prep school. He went to fancy colleges. He was supported by his family. His father handed him millions of dollars. And then You know, he's the entitled rich white guy. And now Brett Kavanaugh, the next entitled rich white guy, she writes, and it's in all caps. It's in the Washington Post. It's called "How Dare You Do This to Brett Kavanaugh" in all caps. And it is so worth looking for in the Washington Post by Alexandra Petrie. She writes, "How dare you do this to Brett Kavanaugh? How dare you deny him this seat? Listen, no, you listen. Do you know who Brett Kavanaugh is? Brett Kavanaugh went to Georgetown Prep. Brett Kavanaugh is an optimist who looks on the sunshine side of the mountain. Brett Kavanaugh is not yelling, you're yelling. If Brett does not secure a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court, this country will be in shambles. This is his birthright. Do you know how embarrassing it is for a Georgetown Prep graduate to not be on the Supreme Court? They are literally 12% of the court. This is probably the worst indignity you can inflict on a human being. You are going to deny a qualified man, the treasurer of the Keg Club. Do you hear him? He was Keg Club treasurer and a Renate alumnus. How dare you say a Keg Club treasurer and Renate alumnus should not serve on the Supreme Court? Are you going to believe her, America, over him? You heard the woman. She doesn't even like to fly, yet she flew here. She doesn't remember all the details of the evening, whereas he kept a calendar like his father before him. He is not emotional. You are emotional. No, you listen. They're going to drag him in front of all these other men and deny him a seat on the Supreme Court, and he will have to walk home confused and disoriented, and he will have to live with the feeling that he is not on the Supreme Court for as long as he lives. Whenever he gets on a plane and sits in his seat, he will think of the seat that he is not in. This is oppression. To be denied power over others, this is not. If that is not what it is, do not tell me. Now his world is falling apart. Now he's being forced to go over his high school behavior with a fine-tooth comb. This is not fair. This scrutiny, this demand to account, he deserves the power. Give it to him. Stop asking him these questions. Stop trying to slow this train down. This train had better get where it's going or something bad will happen. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And over on Daily Beast, the headline, Kavanaugh has become hero to the incel community. These are, the involuntarily celibate. Yes, I was a virgin until college. Maybe because no girl would kiss him? I don't know, but what a strange story. Will Summer writing over at Daily Beast. You can check it out.